This time on Holy Ghost Notes. I would bomb.
Oh, shoot.
You should be a little bit faster with your double kick.
I raised you right.
I'm not sure if it makes me feel any better, but you're right.
Hi, you're listening to Holy Ghost Notes. My name is Matt, and we have Tim Anderson here.
Yo. What's good in the hood?
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Right off the start, I'll just say thank you.
Thank you.
There are a lot of podcasts out there you could be listening to, and we're honored you're listening to this one. If it's your first time listening to Holy Ghost Notes, we talk about two things that Tim and I care a lot about, drumming and God or faith, deeper, profound issues that maybe we're dealing with, struggling with, have questions about. We have actually a whole community of people
Yes.
called the Inner Circle who also discuss those topics and just sort of becomes a conversation after the episode.
That's right.
So the other thing I'll add to that is if it's your first time listening, I met Tim a long time ago and we've done some work together, some ministry work together, some nonprofit work together, and then a couple years went by and we didn't talk as much. And then
we talked a lot.
And then we started talking a lot. And we haven't stopped, actually. So
can't get us to stop talking.
We've had
it's crazy.
had this podcast for over 50 episodes now, and we're just really grateful to be here and be able to have a space where we can record our conversations and hopefully hear back from a lot of you about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously a drummer first and then a lot of other things second. At least that's how I'm known. And Tim is also a drummer, but maybe not first and foremost in the eyes
not
of
so much
a
anymore.
lot of people. So Tim works in the business world, the marketing world, and so our talents have synced quite well. Actually,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's kind of wild, actually, how two homeschooled church kids went on to both pursue music in a similar enough vein. I'm not in the metal vein, but, rock at that, and then, talk about God and family. We both, unlike a lot of people who grew up in the church, have kept faith as an important aspect of our lives. And it's cool just having these conversations from a place of relatability, but also, you've done different things with your life, met different people, had different experiences. So you have a perspective that's completely your own, and I have a perspective that's completely my own. And
True.
a merge of talent and perspective and background. It's a special thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And Tim and I don't agree on everything.
Oh,
there are a couple things that we just don't address or talk about a whole lot because actually the purpose of this podcast, it's not that we've had to say this before, but it's what are some areas in our lives that we see eye to eye on, enough so, right, that we can ask questions about it.
Yeah.
There are certain things in life I've found in my friendships with people, whether it's people in my band or friends or family, that you just know you're not going to make a lot of ground.
Sure.
You're not going to be able to have a conversation that is positive, helpful, or going to just accomplish anything in the end. And so I found that a lot of things in life are about timing. So right now might not be a good time to talk about that one thing or those things, but there are a lot of other things that we can talk about.
Yeah.
And if you can work that ground, to use a farmer metaphor, if you can sort of nurture the relationship and grow the relationship and build a foundation, then you will be able to talk about those other things that are difficult, right? Because you've built a friendship, a relationship, and you can talk about the conflict and the difficult things because there's strength to the relationship.
Yeah.
There's something that can hold that conflict up. And so Tim and I, without ever really, we've never actually talked about this, but there are certain things that maybe we're just not going to talk about on the podcast because we're not there. It's not the right time. and it's not going to be helpful or productive. There are so many things we can talk about.
Yeah.
And I find that pretty neat about having a podcast with someone else. I'd be curious to know what other people that have co-hosts have to say about that, because obviously you're never going to agree with someone else on every single topic.
That's true. That's true. Like, I don't even bring up the fact that you should be a little bit faster with your double kick, because I know it's not going to actually go anywhere.
It's never going to go anywhere.
It's not. We're just going to hit a wall.
We're going to fight about it, and you're going to be right. I mean,
says the guy who can't even really do double kick. I can't. I have one. I guess that's qualifies me. I don't know.
I bet you could play double bass better than. Man, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, but I feel like it's an underwhelming number. I feel like if you pull someone out of the crowd, I would say 90. I'm gonna be a little ambitious. 8%, 98% of the time, your double bass is better than theirs.
That's swinging for the fences, I think, a little bit.
Dude,
but.
think about going to like a high school football game, pre-COVID. And it's packed, 2,000 people, and you pull 100 people from that 2,000 person pool, right?
Oh, so you're saying 98% of people, not necessarily drummers, but people.
Oh yeah, people.
Okay.
People.
I could see that. Yeah. Most people aren't drummers. So I guess you're right. You're right about that.
There you go. I mean,
I'm not sure if it makes me feel any better, but you're right.
It actually made you feel worse. You're like, it's not 99.999.
Yeah, that's 2%, man.
Yeah, of just like your average everyday.
I do have a funny story though, and it's so I guess really what it depends on is what we're measuring against, right? Are we measuring speed or accuracy? Because they're two very different things. And it was funny. I learned this in Nashville, actually, when I was recording in a studio, and this drummer came in, and I had my double kick set up. And he's like, "Oh, cool, you have a double kick. I've never played on a double kick before." So I was like, let's see what you got. And so he sat down and he just started playing. This dude's an incredible drummer as it is, but for like first time on the double kick, and it sounds great because he's able to keep time with his left foot, and so like he's always, using his hi-hat to keep time. And so he just gets on the double kick and it's basically just drumming for him. And he's super on with the click, and so he's just messing around. And I'm like, he's already better. Like, I've had this pedal, and I've been trying to learn double kick, and he just gets on first time ever is better than me. Yeah. But that I think that goes to show you, like, it's not all about just practicing on the double kick. It's everything. It's your internal clock. It's your, everything goes into it. So
true. Your technique.
Yeah, eye-opening moment for me.
Yeah, no, that's true. I was thinking about that this morning. I was thinking about double bass this morning. I'm doing a project right now with Aaron Spears and Kaz Rodriguez, and
that's cool.
And I was just thinking about Aaron and his playing, and I'm like, Aaron's never got into double bass.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? Like,
yeah, true.
He's never. I've never seen him play double bass.
His single's so quick though.
He's super fast, but he at some point had to make the decision, right? To be like, I'm not going to start learning that.
Right.
Because at some point, like, you have to deviate from what you're used to and like work on this other thing that a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
And at some point he just had to make the decision. And of course it's worked out very well for him.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Certain styles don't really require it, Yeah. I actually removed it at one point when I was playing a lot of shows. Just because I didn't even want to feel like I could cheat on some of the things that I should be able to do with my single. And so I got rid of it, and it was really actually a good thing for me in the long run, even though I wasn't practicing on double bass as much. But I was like, it's all a focus thing, You just have to realize, what are you playing, what's needed, and focus on perfecting those things. And even before double kick in every sense, as a drummer, as a metal drummer even, and you would agree with this, there's other rudimentary things that need to be focused on prior to getting fast or accurate on a double pedal, right? Because it does define the style a little bit, but it's if you're not tight and proficient in other areas, then it's not going to sound good regardless. So
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's just a whole nother ball game.
yeah,
Having a double bass pedal.
crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, it's
side
good stuff,
tangent.
man. Yeah. So today we have a really cool episode for you guys. We're going to be talking about the drum topic is gear, drum gear, and admittedly, this is something that I came up with because I was just thinking about the fact that I've been playing for 20 years now, and I recently thought about the fact that I've been playing for 20 years, right? So if you're listening to this and you're like, I've only been playing a year, hopefully one day comes and you're like, oh, I've been playing for 20.
Yeah.
And and then maybe you've been playing for 40 years and you look back on the gear you had in the beginning. It's neat to think about what you used in the beginning and what worked for you, what you learned on, what you believed in, what you could afford,
Yeah.
what you thought looked cool. Maybe sponsorships played into it. Maybe it didn't. Maybe you looked up to an artist and they played a certain hi-hat or snare and you're like, I want that. So I think that stuff's really neat to think about because you were a beginner at one time too. And as an artist who is sponsored and is basically an ambassador for these companies, the goal of signing me and investing into my career through their products is the hope that I'll sell product for them that I'll influence someone to buy their gear. And so as I look back, it's like, well, what worked for me? And the whole idea of this talking about drum gear today comes from Jordan Mancino from As They Dying, him playing a DW kit. So we'll get into that. And then the faith topic today is seasons of life or seasons in life, and just how we can all relate to this idea of like we're in a really difficult season right now, but we know that there are good seasons ahead, and that you don't live in one place forever. So good episode today. I'm excited to talk about those two things.
Me too.
Yeah.
So for gear, we've talked a little bit about what we use. I think our gear episode was actually as simple as that, just literally what we use. So I think we want to deep dive a little bit more into not just what we use, but why we use it, and maybe some cool pieces of gear that we use that you guys might not know about. So
sure. Yeah. So let's get right into it. So I'll just start with this Jordan Mancino story. So I was on tour with Jordan in 2008, and I had always looked up to Jordan. I had always liked As They Dying. They were a metal band that when I first heard their music and heard Jordan's drumming, it was like my dream style. Like I listened to his parts and they sounded catchy and difficult and fast, just fast and powerful. That's the other thing. And so I had first seen As They Dying in 2000. It was either 2001 or 2002. A bunch of friends and I drove out to Cornerstone, which was in Illinois. There's a big Christian festival, and we saw As They Dying perform in a tent. I was fortunate enough to sneak around to the back of the tent. I should tell Jordan about this, actually. It's kind of funny to think about now. But I like snuck to the back of the tent. The back of the tent was open because, of course, it's a summer festival and it's really hot. Everything smells like grass because all these tents are set up in grass and you have people moshing and walking. Man, I could just picture the way it looked and I can smell the way it smelled. It was such a pivotal time of my life. And Jordan was one of the first drummers I saw play metal in person, like real metal.
Yeah.
I'd seen POD, I'd seen I'd seen that genre at some of the more tame Christian festivals, but I had never seen anything like As They Dying in person. And I snuck around to the back of this tent and I watched him play 94 Hours. And you know how it gets to that one part where it's probably 200 BPM and the riff is just straight up catchy, metal riff, and Jordan's just for like 8 bars. It's like a long double bass section. I saw him do that, and he was doing the hairnado.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I fell in love with metal drumming for maybe the first time in that way. Like that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, when you see someone perform at that level, it grabs you and you think, okay, well, if that person believes in that gear, so can I. You know?
Yep.
It affirms the fact that that gear is good. If that person is that good at what they're doing and they're choosing that gear, I'll choose it too.
Mm-hmm.
If it works for them, it can work for me. And so at that time, he was playing Truth, actually.
Okay.
And I had just signed to Truth, and so I felt really good about my decision.
Yeah.
And then not long after that, we toured with them, and this is, like I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. That's 2001. August Burns Red wasn't even a thing yet. I signed to Truth in 2007, and I had seen him play again, and he was with Truth. So 2008, we toured with him, and then again in 2010, and he was playing for DW drums. And I will never forget looking up on stage. I'm setting up my drums on the floor before the show, and he's sound checking. And the way his drums sounded, the way they looked, it's like DW's the Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
And so I signed in 2013, and like maybe one of the most important aspects to me was the fact that Jordan played them. Aaron Spears played DW at the time too. So sponsorships worked for me. Like I wanted to be playing DW because I watched Jordan play DW, and I remember how good it sounded and how good it looked. Like I wanted to be there. So my favorite memory of like I want that drum set is that memory from 2008. 2001 Cornerstone, 2008 on tour, and then when I got my kit in 2013.
Yeah.
Crazy. So yeah, I'm still playing DW. I actually just re-signed a contract with them like right before we pushed record on this.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's been eight or so years. I like DW a lot. And I think that they're still one of the best companies out there, and I like working with them.
Yeah.
Underneath of all of that is like the idea that I hope to be a Jordan to somebody else. Like I told this to DW the other day on the phone to the gentleman I work with over there. I was like, I told him the Jordan story, and I was like, I just hope that I can be that for you guys because it worked for me.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to play this company's drums because of this guy. So I want to be that. And so we kind of talked about ways that we can work towards that. Like, how can I be that for DW? How can we be working together?
Mm-hmm.
So DW drums, Zildjian cymbals, not much of a backstory there besides the fact that
Yeah.
I thought Zildjian was the best. I've always thought they were the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then I play Vic First sticks. I have a signature stick. I'm actually currently trying out the rock stick though.
Oh, cool.
If you're watching video,
Yeah, I saw something
There
about
it
that.
is.
That's cool.
it's a big stick. But I like the weight on the front end and doing the type of practicing I'm doing right now. I like the heavier stick. And then I was with Evans in the beginning. I went to Remo, and now I'm back with Evans. And
That's saying something.
I love Evans, man. Yeah, I'm really happy with the consistency in their heads, and when you find the right head for your drums, like it's hard to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've settled into Evans, I found the right heads for toms. I use clear G2s,
Mm-hmm.
and then I use the heavyweight coated on snare, and of course the EMAD on kick.
I got a funny story, but I'll explain later. For those of you that can't see what I'm doing,
Okay.
Evans G2 clear, right here. I'll
Cool.
explain. I'll explain in a little bit.
Yeah, I want to hear that. All right. And then as far as in ears, I've been using Ultimate ears since 2007. For a long time we didn't use a click track in the band. We would just we'd put earplugs in, just try to keep some of the noise down. We didn't play to a click. There was none of that, and then eventually we wanted to start keeping our tempos consistent because smaller the venue, faster I played, bigger the venue, slower I played. It was frustrating for myself and everyone else on on stage, and probably fans too. And so I bought a pair of Ultimate Ears UE7s. I remember paying for them and everything. Like, this is a big investment. This is weird. I have to go to the audiologist and get my ears molded. Like, that's crazy. This is really techie. This is cool. I can't wait for these, and sent in the molds, and I got the ears back and put them in, and just like, boom, sound isolated. I don't hear too much outside. I can hear just enough, but I don't have to turn my volume up too loud because I have a good seal, and changed the game for me. So I'm still with Ultimate Ears 14 years later, and I'm playing the UE Lives, which are a little bit more ambient. There's a little more feel. Yeah. A little more rock and roll. It's less like dry, clear cut.
Do you like them better than the 18s? You had the 18s before, right?
Yeah, I like them a little better. Okay. The 18s were a little bit clearer.
Okay, yeah.
I would say there was more clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm the kind of drummer where I'll overthink things sometimes, and if I'm only hearing one thing, or I hear something, sounds kind of weird, but like too clearly, it doesn't serve me well. Like, it actually is a disservice to me. So I guess underneath of everything, like, the basis for everything is the hardware, right? I use DW. I've been using the 9000 XF pedals for a long time, and I love these pedals. I was just telling my girlfriend the other day, last week, that I had a breakthrough recently with double bass. It was weird, and I don't know of a better word to use than breakthrough. Epiphany, maybe, but it was more than just an idea, because it was an actual thing that happened too.
Yeah.
Like, physically something happened and mentally something happened at the same time. So I was playing this pretty fast part. I was practicing around like 2:05, which is quick for me. And I looked down on my left leg. I actually lead left, like, with my left leg, and I looked down and I saw my ankle moving. I'm like, okay, that feels good. I'm loose. And then I felt my leg loosen up and start to move slightly up and down in conjunction with my ankle movement. Yeah. So it was like ankle's moving and leg is moving, instead of it just being ankle and instead of it just being leg. Right? Yeah. And I thought in my head, wait, my leg will provide the motion, and my ankle will provide the fulcrum for the motion.
Right.
And like, while I thought it, I was doing it. And I felt so good and confident and smooth and consistent with my double bass. I was like, man, whatever just happened is huge, and I hope it still happens, like, tomorrow.
That's the scariest thing when you get off the kit. You're like, I hope I could do this again.
I know. That's what I thought.
It's not just a good day. Yeah.
I know. And then I practiced the next day, and I didn't feel as good.
Yeah, of course.
I really didn't. It's scary. And if you're a drummer, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not a drummer, you might think like, wait, what? Like, once you have it, right?
Yeah,
and
that's not the case.
It's not the case. But the pedals, these pedals are just great. I would say, number one, they're just durable. Like, I can trust them. I'm not afraid of them breaking. And man, what a scary thought to think of being mid-show and like in the middle of a metal show and your pedals break. It's happened, but very rarely.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much my gear breakdown, and also a little bit of like what got me into playing what I played. I wanted to touch on the sponsorship aspect a little bit, especially with Jordan, because that was really important to me. And maybe some of you listening had an experience like that, where you saw someone playing something and you were like, man, that is incredible, and I really want that thing. And recently, going back after playing for 20 years, going back and looking at what I played in the beginning was kind of eye-opening. So I recommend doing that if you haven't. If you haven't gone back to your first setup.
That's good stuff. So what you were just saying about the like weight, lifting your leg and using your ankle, just reminded me
Yeah.
of the conversation that we had. I believe it was brought on by a conversation you had with Dave Elich about not fighting yourself, where
Oh yeah.
posture and muscle memory and, playing
True.
into the way that, gravity and friction and the way that your joints work is like,
Mm-hmm.
the best way that you can improve yourself. And so that's like that's like a point in and of itself. So I don't want to go into that because that's not what we're talking about right now. But
Yeah.
it is cool that like even at your level, and you said you're celebrating 20 years of drumming, this year,
Yeah.
and you're still learning stuff like that, So like that's so cool to me. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's like it's such a challenging instrument to play, and there's always ways to improve, and there's always things to learn, and it's cool hearing that right from you, who many people, include probably most of the people listening, would consider you the master of this craft.
Dave Elich has this thing called "Get Out of Your Own Way" or "Getting Out of Your Own Way,"
yeah,
and that's, to your point, that's what he talks about. And I don't know how to sum it up any better than that. Like, I felt like I was getting in my own way by doing all these other things. Like,
this is how my joint works. I should probably like utilize it the way it's supposed to be used, right?
Don't do all the other things that get in your way. But for some reason, you've been doing those things for 20 years.
It's shocking to me. I mean, everyone has their own way of drumming. I don't want to knock anybody, but sometimes I'll see these drummers and they're so stiff. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, you are trying so hard to play this thing that you're playing. And yeah, it sounds good. You're great at it. It's kind of like if you see someone bowl and they have the worst form ever, but they're still getting strikes. It's like you can do this so much more easily, but it's okay.
I've been watching some bowling recently, so I know what you're talking about.
My grandpa taught me how to bowl. I'm not good at bowling, but my grandpa taught me how to bowl when I was younger. And he taught me the form and what you're supposed to do. And then, I'll go and bowl with my mother-in-law. She's in a league. She doesn't bowl. She doesn't bowl the way she's supposed to. She walks right up to the line and then lifts her arm back and then just releases.
That's what I do.
She gets strikes. She beats me. And I'm like I've been like practicing this form that my grandpa taught me. This is the way you're supposed to bowl, and she's still better than me at bowling. But that's just that's just how it is. It's the same thing with drumming, I guess. There's definitely workarounds. But I can say, as far like if you're struggling with something, I would say the place to start for improvement is just look at how you're doing it. Matt gave the advice of watching yourself in a mirror. I think that's a really good way. If you're seeing yourself tensing up and you're not using your wrist, like that's a good indication that you could probably play this a little easier and actually increase in your speed and your stamina just by using your wrist a little bit instead.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty of this too. Like I do stuff. I fight my body all the time. But anyway, back to gear. I probably should have went first because now it's just going to sound like I'm copying Matt. But I've actually been playing DW for longer than Matt, so
That's true.
I'm not. But I will say, Matt,
did you just sign a contract today?
No, I have no contract. I paid with my own money.
We should get you a contract.
Yeah. I'm sure lots of people would play because they see me in my drum room playing DW. But actually, on that note, I've never played Truth, but I wanted to play Truth for the longest time because of you and Aaron Gillespie. So that influencer, I mean, I'm in marketing, so influencer marketing is huge. It works 100%. But I will say you are someone who made me want to play Truth. I saw you playing it. I was like, all right off the bat, I trust this company because Matt's playing it.
Yeah.
And then Aaron was playing it on top of it, and I was like, I want to play Truth, but never did. My DW story is a little different. I was playing Gretsch for a while, and I loved Gretsch.
Yeah. That's who Aaron plays now.
Does he?
Right? I think Aaron plays Gretsch.
I know Ash Sohn plays Gretsch. So I played Gretsch for a really long time. Great drums.
Yeah.
But I was playing all these shows as an opening act or, direct support. And so I was always forced to use the backline kit.
Mm-hmm.
At good venues, the backline kit is DW.
Yeah.
And so I played DW kits and almost every time I was like, this kit sounds better than my kit. Like, give me a backline kit any day. It's a, if it's a DW, like I'll play DW over my, so that actually ultimately caused the switch for me from Gretsch to DW. I didn't think I'd ever be able to afford one, but I was working at Guitar Center and I saw the one that I wanted. It's like a pearl white kit, and my band at the time had this like white thing going, like all their cabs were white.
Yeah.
I was like, this is perfect for me. So I bought it and been playing it ever since. It's a great kit. And then that actually influenced my head choice as well. I was an Evans guy. I loved the Evans EMAD kick. It's the best, in my opinion, it's the best bass drum head you can buy, batter head at least. And so, but the DW kit, I guess DW has a contract with Remo, so all their kits come custom with Remo heads, and Remo actually has a custom DW head,
right?
That they make with it's like partially coated. There's like a rim of coating around it. So I switched to Remo because I was like, wow, these heads sound great. Like, it's awesome. But more and more recently, I've just been like remembering how good the Evans sounded. So I showed you this box, this Evans box before.
The 12-inch, yeah.
So I actually have the 12, the 13 for the snare, the 16, and then I have the EMAD for the kick. So right now I have Remo Emperors. I have the black suede.
Okay.
But I'm actually going to be switching them out to Evans, and I'm going to give them a go and see, because both brands are incredible.
Yeah.
You can pick either one of them up and you're going to be happy. I switched my snare head to Remo black suede because Evans had this, it's the Onyx head, which is a black coated, it's like a, 2-ply black coated snare head. And I loved that for my snare, but then it wasn't as easily accessible. But now with Amazon, everything Evans is right at my fingertips, 2-day shipping. So that kind of like influenced my switch back to Evans. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
You should record a drum beat, drum fill, drum beat, like
with
ABAB pattern.
Yeah. That would be fun, actually. I should do that.
Don't mix them. Just like leave them real dry and play exactly the same part, same velocities, same tempo. I would be curious to see and try to tune them, like get a tune bot and try to tune them the same frequencies or pretty close.
So the only issue is that right now I have Remo black suedes on all the toms. And so these are coated tom heads right now, and I'd be switching to clear. So they're going to be different in tone just because it's coated versus clear. But I should do something like a comparison or something. Yeah. And then Zildjian.
Just do like a 30 second, 30 seconds of what you have on now versus 30 seconds of the Evans. Yeah. I would be curious just to hear, even like from the coated to the clear, what the difference will be.
True. That would be interesting. I should do that. And I have all the same mics, placed the same exact way on mounts and everything. So there's really nothing that's going to change. The room sounds the same. So I should do that. That's a great idea.
For sure.
And then for cymbals, Zildjian. I don't really know what made me choose Zildjian. I think I had someone gave me like an old Sabian cymbal when I was younger, and I hated it because it was used and it wasn't like their top model. So I don't want to.
It was
knock
like
Sabian
a B8
either.
Or something.
Yeah, it was something cheap,
sheet cymbal.
And I hated it. And so then I had a Zildjian cymbal, and I guess it was a little higher level. I don't know. It wasn't a custom series. It was like probably just like an A. An A crash or something like that. And it was so nice sounding, and I was like, oh, it's better than Sabian just because of that. Bad comparison. But I've been playing them ever since, and at this point, I don't have the money to switch to another brand. But I'm really happy with Zildjian. I love their K Custom series and their A Custom series. All my crashes are A Custom, and then I have the K Hybrid Ride, the K Custom Hybrid Ride, and then the K Dark, the Custom Dark hi-hats are like so crisp, so clear.
Where's your blast bell, man?
My blast bell. I don't have one. I do have a couple effects splashes that I was using, like I forget what the model is, but I need a blast bell. I don't do much with bells. I had a Zill bell, but as far as like if you want something to cut through the mix, it definitely does it, but for like 10 seconds. So I took that off pretty quickly, and I just used the ride bell.
Yeah,
But-
you need a whole roll of tape on the Zill bell. It
Yeah.
will ring.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
still ringing. You hit it
Oh,
4
it's
years
still
ago,
ringing, yeah.
and it's still ringing. I
I
hear
had
it
to
a
like
little
hide
bit.
it under a pillow in my house because it just kept going. But
That ringing in your ears is not because you didn't wear earplugs.
yeah, that's right.
It's your Zill bell.
It's not from years of playing drums. It's just from that
Exactly.
one bell. Yeah.
Exactly. You blast bell.
The blast
It
bell.
only rings. It only rings a couple seconds.
What is the decay on? It's a couple seconds?
It's probably longer than that. Well, let me see.
Okay. I'd say like 6 seconds of like actual real crisp. Like that, the 6 seconds is what's going to cut through everything else.
Yep. Do
That's
you
way
like
better.
It?
I do. I like it better
Do you-
than the 10 seconds. I don't have a real need for bells
Yeah.
because I don't really play anything that requires it. But that's tempting just because it would be nice to have the option. And
Would
something
you
that I don't have to
buy
mix
a
out.
blast bell just because it rings for 6 seconds?
I'll buy a blast bell because if someone sees me playing it, they might buy more for you.
Oh, that is really nice.
Are
of
you signing blast bell endorsements?
endorsements? Absolutely not.
I'll be a blast I'll be a blast bell artist for you, Matt.
We aren't accepting any of those, but I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
That was my complaint with the Zill bell too. The Zill bell is not a good effect symbol, and
Yeah.
it's because it rings. It's so thick.
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
huge.
thick, and it just rings forever and ever.
Yeah.
It's just I knew what you were going to say about it before you even said it because
Yeah.
that's. I talk about this with Adam Gray sometimes. The Zill bell. Oh yeah,
It just goes,
get the
it
gaff
goes, it
tape
goes.
out.
Yeah. It's crazy. I do have this cool it's an EFX you can't see it, but it's
Oh, yeah, those
right
are
here.
cool.
It's an A custom EFX 17-inch, and it has like the holes cut out. And I bought it cuz I played one. I was vacationing in Nashville and went to this killer drum shop, and they had everything drums, everything you could think of, every single cymbal. And I've been wanting to try one for a while, so I tried it, played around with it, and ended up buying one. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Zildjian all the way. I don't think I'd ever look to any other cymbal company. I've had like requests from people, companies that have reached out wanting me to endorse their cymbals. Nothing like Sabian or Meinl or anything like that, but smaller level ones. And I just like even the incentive of cheap or free cymbals for me. There's like I just don't want other cymbals. I want to I'd pay to use Zildjian, so that's pretty much why I keep using them.
That's great. That's really cool.
And yeah, as far as hardware goes, DW, I bought it primarily because it would match my kit. But it really is the best hardware I've ever used. It's so durable and thick and customizable. And so DW 9000 or 9001, I forget what they call it, but it's 9000 series hardware is just, fantastic. No complaints. It's held up for, I got this kit and all the hardware and everything in 2012, I think. So
Yeah.
held
It is
up.
the best.
It's like brand new. Like I have literally there's nothing wrong with anything that I have here.
Yeah.
it's like brand new. So yeah. And then Styx is Vic Firth. Again, just because I was playing it. I think it was actually I probably said this in our last episode about gear, but it was actually Wuv from POD.
Oh, was it? That's awesome.
I bought his signature Styx because I was a huge POD fan. And then at some point I ran out of sticks. I didn't want to play these because they were like signed by Wuv, but I ended up just using them and I loved them.
Yeah.
Like how they felt and everything. So I started using 7As, Vic Firth 7As, because they are the closest thing to what Wuv was playing. And I've been playing with those ever since. I was probably 13, 14.
Yeah.
And I've been playing I started with 5As and then I, switched to that as soon as I realized that Wuv stick was way nicer for me and not for everybody. But
So I have a question, hypothetical.
okay.
You're about to play a show. Oh, and if you're listening to this and you want to respond, send us a message on Instagram, because I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this. If we can find a more likely scenario than another. In other words, what are people going to pick?
Sure.
You're about to play a show for, let's say it's going to be televised. You're going to be on Jimmy Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Questlove's watching. You're doing a drum solo. You're brought on
Okay.
to play a drum solo, and you're going to play a solo that well, and everyone's going to be impressed if you play it well and nothing goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you will play it well if nothing goes wrong with your gear.
Mm-hmm.
You get to choose one aspect of your setup. So in other words, you can only choose one aspect. Everything else is provided for you, and it might be middle of the road. So like you can only choose your cymbal setup, or you can only choose your pedals and your hardware, or you can only choose your drums or your in-ears or your sticks or your heads. So
Jeez.
what you
What a
pick will
question.
determine what you pick will help determine how well you play. In other words, if you're playing baseball bats for sticks and you're used to smaller sticks, you're not going to play as well. You're going to play a little differently. But if you choose drums, then you don't get to choose cymbals, right? Which you're going to get a completely different setup. So you have control over one aspect of what you play. Which one are you going to take control of, and leave the rest to guesswork?
Dude,
I can handle it.
So hard. So if I were to not choose sticks, would I get to choose a comparable stick size from another company?
You're going
is
to
it
be
just
given a random stick. Who knows what
Sticks
it's going
100%.
to be?
Sticks 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would feel so. I would lose all my confidence if I had like your signature stick instead of a 7A trying to play the same solo. I would bomb. But,
even if like your cymbal setup was completely different, your drums that you are playing completely different, your pedals that you are playing are completely different. Like you can adjust all those things, like the height, the angle, the tension of your pedals. But like you're saying that the sticks are the most important factor, them being right. Like they have to be right.
For me, I would say like heads are the least important.
I would agree.
So I don't really care what heads are on the kit as long as they're tuned. Cymbals are tough. So cymbals might be next after sticks just because of sizes.
Yeah.
Because if a cymbal is an inch bigger on one side or an inch smaller, you're playing completely differently to try to accommodate for that difference in setup. So cymbals are probably second for me, closely followed by pedals, because I mean, again, unless you're getting a pedal that's comparable to what you're used to or very similar, it's gonna react differently no matter what you do with the tension.
Yeah.
So that is a really tough question, man. But I would have to go with sticks. I think over everything. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with cymbals because of the point you made about sizes.
Yeah.
I have to have stuff there. It doesn't matter if it sounds like cardboard in the moment, like just to get through it. I need it to be the right sizes.
But what if you were handed a pair of 7As? Would you go back on that decision?
No, I could handle it.
Really?
I'd turn them
You're
around.
You're losing 2 inches almost.
Yep.
At the end of your stick, and the weight is like half the weight, and you would still feel.
If I have my exact cymbal set up, like sizes, bells, I could get them to the right position. I could deal with it. But if I don't have that, I'm going to be a mess. And I know that because it happened. It's just all based on experience. Okay. Minus the Jimmy Fallon and the playing live for, a television, audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, just putting it out there. If you're listening to this and you have an answer, send us a message. Just kind of a cool hypothetical.
I love that.
All right, we're gonna wrap drum gear. That was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed listening to some of our stories about how and why we're playing what we're playing to this day. Both Tim and I, and maybe at the end of this, of course, it's a fun, lighthearted conversation about drum gear, right? But I think at the root of it, we make decisions to pick the gear that we, choose to play, and maybe at the very least, this will make us remember and remind us why we chose what we chose, and maybe make some decisions to change some of those things. Because if you're playing a really terrible sounding drum set, it's not all that fun to play drums. Yeah. And so if you're like, wait, I think I want to try, like Tim, you're about to put on these Evans heads. That could reinvigorate your love for drumming, like just revitalize it. And it will, actually, because you'll be excited about the way things sound. And I want that for drummers. I want all of you listening that are drummers to fall in love with your drum set every time you play. Even if you have a terrible session, you know that you're going to come back to it and you might have a better one. And I think gear plays into that. Yeah. And alongside of that, people are looking at you and the gear that you have, especially if you're posting online. And so, think about that and use that to your benefit and the companies that you're playing too.
True. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we didn't leave a whole lot of time for our faith topic, which is a little sad because it's a great topic, but I think we can talk about this and have a good conversation regardless. So I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm a very nostalgic person, and I care a lot about relationships and people and things that happen. And so even people that I wouldn't necessarily call friends, but just acquaintances, if I've had something meaningful, a meaningful conversation, they still hold a place in my mind, as important as, something that I valued, something that I took something away from. So this has been a weird, obviously 2020 was super weird. And I was just talking about this with my wife this morning, January through March was like a different year. After March, it was just, when you say 2020, I don't think of January 2020, February 2020, March 2020, because it's just totally different. But recently, I feel like I've been hit with a bunch of different elements from a bunch of different times in my life. So here's what's going on. I'll just come right out. So my best friend, since I was 12 years old, we've been in multiple bands together, written tons of songs, and I probably spent more time with him and since I've been 12 more than anyone else in my entire life. He just moved to Florida, and it was really weird. I went and visited him, and we walked around his house where we spent most of our childhood, and just it was weird being back there, knowing that I will never be back here again. So even the location, the place where I, have a bunch of memories, even that was triggering these feelings that it's not even my house. I didn't really grow up there, but I guess I kind of did. Right. And so I was brought back to all those times and all those memories, and saying goodbye to him. With technology, it's not really goodbye, but he's not down the road anymore. Saying goodbye to him was strange. And then I think it was the next day, I saw a post from someone. I guess I would consider them a friend, but they were a coworker at my first job that I had a number of shifts with, and we had some meaningful conversations. And she posted on Facebook that basically she has an aggressive form of cancer, and it was her goodbye message. She's I'm sorry I haven't reached out to anybody. Just want to let you know that I'm dying. I'm sorry to put it out there like this, but I don't have another choice. And it just hit me because I was I just immediately started thinking of the conversations that we had and the time that we spent together. And like I said, we never really hung out outside of work. I think she did come to one of my band's shows. But we never really spent a ton of time together, but it still hit me. She was still someone in my life that I had spent time with, and seeing that hit me in a weird way. And then additionally, I was watching some old footage of my high school band, And that brought me back. And then I started writing music about that. And that took me into this whole nostalgic, like, so I was just hit with all these seasons in life. And then like the tip of the iceberg was just like, I literally have a brand new baby. It took me back to my reality right now. I have a brand new baby. I have a job. Like my mindset now is so different than it was even like 3 years ago or even 2 years ago. Just in the place that I'm at, I have this podcast. Matt and I talk more than we ever have in our entire friendship. It's just like, and so it brought up this idea of just seasons in life. And I want to read a quick verse before we really dive into this, and it's from Ecclesiastes. You probably all know this. There was even a Simon and Garfunkel song about it, but it's Ecclesiastes 3:1-22. So here it goes. It's for everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. This verse never really meant a whole lot to me growing up. It was just kind of like, I just never really understood why it was as popular as it was. I don't know why there were songs written about it. But now more than ever do I understand the importance of this verse, and I feel like so God is not human, right? But he is at the same time, because we're made in his image. And I've never felt more like, since having kids and then like reading this verse with the perspective I have now, I've never felt as close to God in the sense that I feel like he understands everything about me, who I am, how I feel. In this verse, like, God didn't write this verse, but it was written by Paul. But it's inspired, right? And this is like, when I read this now, I just like think about like, man, oh man, like this is like so true. There is a season for everything. Like right now, I am in a season, like my wife and I left our church over COVID, and we haven't found another church since COVID, just because it's been so difficult. You can't really go to church right now. Only certain churches are like open. And so we've been in this strange season of not being in a church. I haven't had many instances like this in my life. And like part of me at times, like I start to get bitter about like things that happened or things that forced me to want to leave this church. And I find myself heading down roads of like actually discounting all of the good things that came from that season in my life. And so that's what I want to hit on today. There are seasons for everything. In this case, there was a season where I was in this church, involved in this church, growing in this church. Now I'm not in that season. It's okay. And what I'm trying not to do is to try to wipe out that season of my life like it never happened. Like it's like a battle to be like, the things I learned, the things that I was taught, the friendships I made at that church, it wasn't worthless. That happened. I grew, I learned. Good things came out of those relationships. Good things came out of worshiping with those people and hearing those messages. And I can't just remove that because something bad happened. Or because I'm not there anymore. And so I'm curious to know how you feel or what thoughts you have based on what I'm saying, Matt, just because I know that you have, we've talked about this, I guess, to some extent, just seasons in life and how you move through seasons. Sometimes seasons merge a little bit, as we're seeing right now with winter and spring. Yeah. Get over it, winter. You're done.
You're done. Get out of the
way. But it's such a, at least for me, it's such a great thing to understand. And this verse helped me a little bit to come to grips with like some of the emotions that I was feeling and some of the thoughts that I was having. Because there is a season for everything. And even that last line, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, was oddly relevant for COVID.
That's right.
But
that's one way to put it.
That was more of a joke than anything else. But but based on everything, this conglomeration, this mess of things that I've just said, I'm curious to know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I, like you, am sentimental. I look back on a time of my life when I was a kid, and it feels like a different life. Mm-hmm. I look at pictures of my mom and dad, and I look at them now, and then feels like a different life. I think this is an important topic to talk about. The reason I think it's important is because today we are creating what will eventually be then the past. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you forget that, then you're always looking backwards at what was, or you're always looking forwards at what will be. But what's now was the future at one point and will eventually be the past. You're writing that right now, what you choose to do today. And if it's a really terrible season, if it's a really sad time of your life, I think that this conversation serves to pick you up and to say, you can sit in this for now and you can face it because you know in the future there will be a different season. This is not the end of the world, in other words. Yeah. It's really helpful to hear that when you're struggling. It's really helpful to hear that this is not the end of the world. In other words, there is another season. There is more than this. This is not the rest of your life. And what that does is when you're in a terrible, tough situation, it helps you not make irrational decisions and say things that you wish that you wouldn't have said and do things you wish you wouldn't have done. It helps you understand that not everything rides on this one thing. It's not as critical as you think. And I wish someone would have told me that during a few difficult seasons of my life. This is not the end of the world. So let me just say that if you're listening to this and you're having a tough time right now, Tim and I have both had some difficulty and challenges over the last 3 or 4 years. Heartbreak and loss, that's deep-seated, and it still hurts. And I think I'll speak for myself. There were days and weeks and months that I wish that I didn't have to feel that type of pain. But as I look back on it now, I'm grateful for that season, because the next season of my life, the season that I'm in now, benefits from the fact that not every season is this season.
Right.
And I think this is the bottom line, right? If you're going through a difficult time, you need to know it's not the end of the world, and this message can pick you up. And then at the same time, if you're really experiencing a high in life and you're coasting along, Christianity tells us that actually life's really not all about it being easy, and that there will be seasons of difficulty and loss and pain. And when they come, you don't have to be surprised by them. Right. And it's not human nature to think about that. It's human nature to need and contemplate and think about a verse like this when we are at a loss, when we need answers. It is equally important that we think about it when we're at a high, when we are coasting along, because then we're prepared for that loss. Yeah. So this is a very, very, very relevant conversation to me. It hits me in the feels. I look at photo albums and I see pictures of myself as a kid and my brothers riding dirt bikes, skateboards, doing our schoolwork, going to local farm shows and fairs, helping my dad on the farm, holidays together. And we can all relate to the feeling, right, that we get when we look at our childhood, whether it's a good feeling, which for me it generally is, or whether it's a painful one, which for many people it is. It's a painful season. Family, broken families and abuse and neglect and rejection and all the things that play into relational pain. those things I really didn't experience as a kid, but I experienced some of them later on. Just the reality of growing up and having conflict with other people. And so I think that, for me, what probably makes this the most true in my life right now is looking at my parents. Because I love my parents. I love my dad and my mom, and I look up to them so much. And you know how when you're a kid, you look at your parents through a certain lens? For me, it was they're superheroes that can do no wrong. I really believe that, like, they epitomize strength and perfection and love, and they will do no wrong ever, never, ever. Even if they do wrong, it's something I did or someone else did. They're perfect. And then you grow up and you realize, wait a second, they're just people. And the perfect example of this is a time that I was working on the farm with my dad, and we were fixing what's called a woven wire fence. Okay, a woven wire fence is kind of a pain in the butt farmer fence. It's cheap. Yeah. It does the job, keeps livestock in, and hopefully pests out, at least people out. And we had to cut it to do some repair work on our pond, right? And when you cut a woven wire fence, you can't just clip it back together. It requires certain tools. So we were using these tools. I had no idea what I was doing. I was helping my dad. and this tool, which pulls one side closer to the other so that you can then weld them together, the tool slipped. And so there was a lot of tension, right? You're pulling an entire fence from the right together with an entire fence from the left, and you're trying to keep them connected so that you can weld them. And the tool slipped and went whoop. And, this is pretty close to our face. And, of course, it's not a good outcome. So my reaction is, oh, shoot. And my dad's reaction is, oh, shit. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he goes, I raised you right.
That's funny.
And in that moment, I thought, my dad is someone I look up to more now than I did then. And the reason is not because he's perfect, but because he's not.
Yeah.
And because he's okay to show it in a time, in a season of my life when I can handle it, right? It's probably not a great idea for him to be saying something like that when I'm 6 years old. So he would say, oh,
I've got some
shoot.
stuff to learn from him. Sorry, Caden.
This is a broad
the damage
stroke.
that I inflict.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is model behavior that I'll also model, but in my own life, it was really neat to see my dad determine when we were kids what he was going to say around us, and then once we're adults, when we're in this next season, I'm still saying the kid version in a fit of like imagine something that happens to you that you can't really decide what you're gonna say. It's just word vomit.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happened. It was like, boo, oh shoot, and I'm still saying that.
You're still saying it. Yeah.
So dumb, and he's over here like, yeah, oh my, this is terrible, like there's reason for emphasis in this situation. This is not good. And it was just so funny. I looked at him square in the eyes, and he said, I raised you right, son. So I think when we talk about this, the first faces that pop in my head are my mom and my dad. And I think, whether you're listening to this and you've had a really good experience with family, you've had parents that have loved you, or maybe you haven't, but you've had someone else in your life that has stepped in and has been that father figure or that mother figure to you, or that friend that you needed. When you think about the way things were with them 10, 20, maybe 30 years ago, that will drive this point home. Seasons of life. Yeah. Where were you then and where are you now? The last thing I'll say about this is I had dinner the other day with a couple, and the wife had a lot of terrible things happen when she was young. And she's now very successful in doing incredible things with her life. Her list of accolades is crazy, and you would have never guessed that she went through what she went through. And the way that she talked about them is moving. And you can tell when she talks about that season of her life that it makes her ability to do her job now fairly easy, because she's gone through hell to get here. And it's like, this, I'm really grateful for this beautiful thing that I have and I get to do. And it drives her to do it so well. And as I think about that, I think about a season of life that was hell, and now a season of life that is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I don't know if she would say that she wishes she could erase all of it, but certainly an argument could be made that if you did, she certainly wouldn't be who she is today.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I want to take that point even further, and I said this before, but like I think the main takeaway for this conversation, this topic, is literally don't discount the good things that happen in each season, as dark as they may be. Because I can picture right off the bat, when you said dark season, I pictured something very specific, a very specific season
me too.
in my life that I consider the darkest time. And I still see I'm still benefiting from the good things that have come out of that season. And so whatever season you're in, enjoy it as much as you can. Because I even thinking about the good times in my life, in most cases, like the times that I refer to as, oh yeah, those are the best times. Those are the greatest times. Can't we go back to those times? In those times, I was like thinking, I can't wait for this.
That's
or
right.
Like, remember when I was younger, those were the best times, you know? So like, I want to be able to live in the moment to an extent as well. I want to be able to say, this is the best time of my life, and I'm going to enjoy it to the fullest. And I'm going to take as much out of my past as I can, the good things, the friendships, the relationships, the conversations, and despite all the bad, I am going to take it and I'm going to make it my own, and I'm going to remember it, and I'm going to hold on to it. And so that's where I want to end with this.
That's
I think
great.
Is just
That's great.
Make
I really
the
like
most
that.
of life, right?
I really like that, Tim. This has been really good. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, my pleasure. This was fun. So I guess, as per usual, if you guys have any comments, I know Matt threw a really good question out there during the drum topic, so make sure that you hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, or Matt and Tim at theholyghostnotes.com if you're an email person. Love to hear your answer to that question, because that's a tough one. I am an email person for work. Otherwise, I avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
But keep using that hashtag Holy Ghost Notes on your drum grooves. That's about it. We've got merch up on our website, holyghostnotes.com/shop. If you're interested in becoming more involved in the podcast or supporting what we do here, we are fully funded by our inner circle. They're the best people. You can learn more about that at patreon.com/holyghostnotes. And I actually have a new shout out real quick to Brandon Vitro. Thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the inner circle.
Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for keeping us going here.
Absolutely.
And that about wraps it up.
That's it. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And we always end the same way on here. If it's your first time, we say the word peace. We're about to do that right now.
Oh, yeah. You bet.
Peace.